Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Garrity.
And welcome, everyone, to the Thursday edition of the Three Martini Lunch, along with Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Good, bad, and crazy martinis for conservatives today. Back to the usual lineup following three crazy stories yesterday. We start with the good, and yes, once again, we're celebrating the fact that Hillary Clinton is failing to put away Bernie Sanders and is struggling, and some might say limping, to the finish line of the primary schedule, which will come this coming Tuesday in a number of states. And Jim, it looks like unless there's a major Sanders landslide, she will have the most pledged delegates. And when you factor in the pledged superdelegates at this point, she will likely be the nominee. But that doesn't mean that Sanders is giving up, and it doesn't mean the Democrats are ready to give her the coronation yet, because there's a new NBC Wall Street Journal Marist poll out showing Hillary Clinton in California only leads Bernie Sanders 49 to 47, 2 points well within the margin of error. When you look at likely Democratic primary voters, it's only 1 point. And so clearly the California Democrats aren't ready to crown her. And when you look at the way other factors are moving in here, like Hillary Clinton canceling events in New Jersey to scramble out to California and try to preserve a victory there, that clearly doesn't look like a candidate that's on the upswing. And if that weren't enough, Brian Fallon, campaign spokesman for Hillary Clinton, was on Meet the Press Daily with Chuck Todd, explaining how Bernie Sanders' strategy of winning over superdelegates to take away the nomination from Hillary Clinton would just be horrible. Here's how that exchange went.
I said, what's your path? And he says, number one, it is having, they need to have the lead in pledged delegates.
Right.
Is that a fair, you think he himself has given a fair metric of what is contested and not?
Well, otherwise, I think he is arguing for the superdelegates to swing the outcome in favor of somebody that finished second in the pledged delegates. That would be clearly thwarting the will of the electorate.
Which is exactly the opposite of the argument the Clintons were using 8 years ago. So, Jim, clearly not the position Hillary wanted to be in this close to the end of the primary schedule.
You know, it's just interesting. A lot of people saying, this is not too different from 2008. Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton had a really long, tough primary that went almost to the end, and there was a lot of bad blood stirred up, and they all unified in the end, and they all ended up beating John McCain and Sarah Palin. And I think there's an important difference here, which is that you look back to 2008, were there policy differences between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama? Sure. Hillary Clinton supported a mandate to require everyone to purchase health insurance, and Barack Obama thought that was a terrible idea, and we all know how that turned out. But I think actually that there is a bigger, more fundamental ideological divide between Sanders and his supporters and Hillary Clinton and her supporters. At the heart of it, the Sanders supporters think the country needs a revolution. They're openly socialists. They basically believe that, there's a reason things have gone terrible, that there's some, powerful rich people, and we need to rise up and overthrow them and take their wealth for ourselves. And that's not where Hillary Clinton is coming from. Hillary Clinton has probably been attending fundraisers with all of these people. So I actually think this is not going to just smooth itself over. Yeah, you might see the Democrats all unify out of fear over Donald Trump, and we can't let the Republicans win, and all that kind of stuff. Or Obama might come out and really try to bring the Sanders folks on board. But I think that there's a real serious division in the Democratic Party. And, the reaction of it's at its heart a reaction to the Obama years. Things have not turned out. They elected hope and change, and it didn't deliver. So the Sanders response is, well, we didn't try hard enough. We need to over-evolution. We need to go further for the left. We compromised too much. And the Hillary approach is much more of a, no, we need better managers, right? We just need a little more focus. We need somebody who's a little more on the ball on this, and it's going to work out. And I don't think you work that out very easily. And I think that even if, depending on how, we don't know how 2016 is going to shake out, but I don't think this fight is going to end the day one or the other concedes the race. I think this is going to go on for Democrats for quite some time and probably impede them and replicate itself in one form or another in a lot of Democratic primaries to come.
Rest assured, Democrats, whatever you want Hillary Clinton to be, she'll tell you that's exactly what she's going to be.
I have principles, and if you don't like them, I have others.
That's right. All right. Speaking of Hillary, let's go to some new polling, which is also very interesting in a different way for our bad martini. This is a new Rasmussen poll showing that if, in fact, Hillary Clinton is indicted, a lot of people think she should still run for president. 71% of Democratic voters believe that she should keep running even if indicted, a view shared by only 30% of Republicans and 46% of unaffiliated voters. Overall, 50% of those polled said she should keep running. So a potential felon is okay with half of the American voters, though I assume many of those Republicans actually want her to stay in because they think she'd be easier to beat.
This is a bad martini, not just for what it says about Democrats and the electorate, but Greg, it makes it harder for us to tease the Democrats when they live up to it. God, they'd vote for her even if she was indicted. No, really, they would. And I suppose you could say, well, just because you're indicted doesn't mean you're convicted of anything. I wish they felt that for people like Scooter Libby or the Duke lacrosse players or circumstances like that, but or Baltimore cops or things like that. But ultimately, I think this represents a breakdown in basic people's ability to discern good judgment and common sense, and I think it indicates that our politics really has become a battle of dueling cults of personalities in which the person you prefer can do no wrong, and the critics are always bad. And if your guy gets indicted or your gal gets indicted, well, by golly, it just must be the FBI's unfair not to get them.
Where do we go from
one of our hemlock martinis, Greg? Yeah, that's the one that makes you just lose all faith in humanity.
Yeah, when the memes don't even work anymore because they just agree with you. That means we got to up our game somehow. All right, on to the crazy martini now, and we're back to ESPN. We've spent a lot of time with ESPN because they spend a lot of time on political and cultural issues now and cracking down on those who don't agree with their very politically correct approach. We've talked about the Curt Schilling story a number of different times. Now there's a new ESPN personality in the crosshairs, but he's not being punished at all. He's ESPN magazine columnist Howard Bryant, who has finally addressed, Jim, one of the important scourges involving professional sports today. It's not performance-enhancing drugs. It's not the amount of money that these athletes are getting. No. It's cops at ball games. He says policing is clearly one of the most divisive issues in the country, except in the sports arena, where the post-9/11 hero narrative has been so deeply embedded within its game day fabric that policing is seen as clean, heroic, uncomplicated. Following the marketing strategy of the military, police advocacy organizations have partnered with teams from all 4 major leagues to host law enforcement appreciation nights or similar events. He goes on to say nobody seems to care much about this authoritarian shift at the ballpark, yet the media and the public are quick to demand accountability from players they consider insufficiently activist. They blame these black players for not speaking up on behalf of their communities, ignoring the smothering effect that staged patriotism and cop singing the national anthem in a time of Ferguson have on player expression. And he goes on to be horrified at events where the Chicago Blackhawks, for example, honored the military with camouflage shirts that still had the Blackhawks logo, and that, of course, was somehow contradictory because the military forced the Indians to move at one point in American history. Jim, clearly this is a huge problem in America, cops singing the national anthem and being out there on the field before games. The ability of this to be taken seriously is one thing. ESPN has no problem with this whatsoever.
Greg, it's really, really tough to get that angry about a controversial statement from an employee of an institution that employed Colin Cowherd for all those years.
Amen.
Can you believe the guy said something stupid? Yeah, that's kind of the business model. But having said that, Curt Schilling had to go because of what he said about transgenders in bathrooms, but this guy's okay. ESPN looks like they have a very one-sided standard of the kinds of controversies they're willing to tolerate. The idea of let's honor the guys who are protecting us. If I go to ESPN's headquarters, you think I can just walk in the door and go up to that guy's cubicle in his office? I'm fairly certain there's a security guard, and I bet there's a pretty good chance that if he's not armed, then there's an armed security guys who are not that far away. And up in Bristol, Connecticut, it all looks like they're having fun in those commercials with all the celebrities and all the mascots running around in the background. But I'm fairly certain Bristol has a police department. Right. So this guy's protected by the cops. Now, if you want to argue about the militarization of police or whether police brutality gets taken seriously or police, we can have these legitimate arguments. Honoring police at the beginning of ball games isn't it. That's not it. I think if that's the definition of promoting authoritarianism, we've now the words don't mean anything. It's been a really brutal year, Greg, for people who believe that words mean stuff.
Right. Exactly.
I will quote Trump campaign advisor Barry Bennett, formerly of the Ben Carson campaign, quote, "We need to get past this idea that words mean things." Said it on CNN a few weeks ago. That basically says it, because if cops at ball games is authoritarianism, well, then fine, you and I are rhododendrons, and there are cupcakes growing on trees and all that kind of stuff. At this point, you listen to some of these people, it feels like we're on a massive cultural LSD trip. Not that I know what that feels like.
Let me go back to this sentence. Nobody seems to care much about this authoritarian shift at the ballpark, yet the media and the public are quick to demand accountability from players they consider insufficiently activist. Jim, do you get upset because your favorite sports stars don't speak out enough on political issues?
I just want them to catch the damn ball, Greg.
That's right.
Let me do that, and then I'll worry about whether they're sufficiently activist or something. No, and as you and I have said in most of these segments, we would really like, when we turn on sports, to actually just enjoy ourselves and forget about the world's problems and not get harangued and not get Bab Costas telling us we're really at fault for the latest shooting somewhere. When I turn on my radio, Greg, I really like the idea of yelling at the host for something completely unrelated to politics. And very often they offer that, particularly back at, Cowherd is on some other station. This is like just kind of these people in the sports world forgetting what their role is, what their purpose is, and basically believing the job is to lecture people and to, when he says nobody's noticed this, maybe it's for a reason, pal. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's not that we're all walking around oblivious to this grand authoritarian conspiracy unfolding all around us.
Oh, my goodness. Way to go, Howard Bryant. Way to go. All right. Jim, have a good day. Talk to you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Columbus of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today, and be sure to tune in again on Friday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.